Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 63 of Learning Become podcast. And today it's a new episode talking about the learning process. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. How are you, Deborah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Yes. I think I'm very thoughtful about today's topic. Because I don't think I agree with the way things go most of the time when it comes to learning or teaching or both.
I think the people views are changing with the amount of information that it's being spread. And there are the good and the bad, right? There are the good information, there's bad information. There's something I've been learning a lot about in this book I've been reading called Mama Bear Apologetics, which I love it. And they have a podcast too, which I totally recommend it. They say to teach our kids how to chew and spit. And meaning everything, like everything, no matter what it is, where it's from, always gonna have good and always gonna have bad. So instead of isolating yourself or not allowing your kids specifically to have contact with certain content, you can teach them to spit and chew. So basically is the method of you watch something or you listen to something or you read something, you get what is good for you and what is good is what is truth, and then you spit what is bad, what is bad information, what are lies, what are not, what is not good, basically. So it's very interesting perspective the way they talk about this process. It's so it's really interesting, really interesting. Anyways, I think in life everything is like that, and I feel like people are becoming more independent in gathering information, right? But a lot of people are not filtering it, because basically chew and spit is filtering information, right?
Yes, and it's good because you develop some sense of critical thinking. It's not just like I'll get everything that comes my direction. Yes, exactly. And talking about learning and about all those ways of thinking about the learning process and about formal education, informal education, online education, like all sorts of education. In your opinion, whose responsibility is it if the person learns or if they don't learn? The institution, the teacher, or the course, or the student's responsibility?
Well, like I comment on your post on your Instagram page, I believe that you can have the best teacher, the best class, but if you don't want to learn, if you don't have the interest in learning, you will not learn. And the other way around too, like you can have the worst teacher, you can have the worst school, but the worst method. But if you want to learn, you will find ways to learn. However, your way of finding probably is not going to be with that method or with that teacher or with that school. And that's the difference. So I feel like learning is a very, it's a very personal choice to do, and relies a lot of responsibility in the student of making that choice. However, the method and the teacher will absolutely have an influence of if you will learn or not. You know, like Meaning, will that really think about kids? Like, kids change their interest every single day. Like, Victor has phases where trains are the coolest thing ever. But then he's gonna have phases where monster trucks are much cooler. And then there are phases where it's all about dinosaurs. So usually he rotates on those. He's not a football or a soccer kind of guy. I've tried. He has a ball, he has a goal, he has all
Football
that.
ball.
Yeah. While my niece, for example, she loves soccer. Not necessarily to play, but zero for her is super fun. So she look forward to game days and all that.
For
Victor doesn't
real.
even know what that is. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she loves it. She wears her zero shirt on the game days, and she talks about it until it's game day, and it's the only TV she's allowed to watch is soccer games. She doesn't
That's
watch
so interesting.
cartoons, she doesn't watch anything.
But
So
your brother likes it too, right?
exactly. And they don't want her watching any TV shows, cartoons, anything. So she doesn't watch TV at all. You know, I don't know for how long they're gonna keep that, but that's what they've been doing. I thought it was until she's 2, but she's already 2 now. Maybe it's gonna be when she's older. I'm not sure what is the plan there, but yeah, they are avoiding to allow her to watch TV and cartoons and stuff like that. Anyways, so kids has all kinds of different taste, right? One day they love one thing, the next day they don't love so much. So I can try to, if I get those interests to teach something to Victor, the chances are that he will absorb that knowledge much faster. So if I try to teach him that to count 1, 2, 3, and he loves trains and trucks, I can say, let's count how many trains you have here and how many trucks you have here, right? But if I try to teach him, let's do goals and count how many goals you can do, but he's not a soccer. He's gonna just lose interest. He's not gonna want to insist on that game, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna do one goal. Okay, I did one goal. I'm satisfied. I don't want to keep doing this anymore, right? So I can keep, of course, pushing him to be involved with the ball and play soccer and all that, but he's still gonna have his favorite things, right? Like I took him to soccer class and he didn't do it. In one of the soccer classes, he was literally crying for 30 minutes on my lap because he didn't want to he didn't want to do the class. He want to play with the truck. So I told him, like, you have 2 choices. You can do the class and have fun, or you can stay with me here and watch the class, but you're only gonna play with your truck after the class. Just because I wanted him to try something new, you know, but I wasn't going to force him either. I would give him choices, right? And he chose to cry on my lap the whole time. And he kicked the ball twice during that whole time. And I call that victory. Like, at least he kicked the ball twice. I didn't force him. He grabbed the ball, kicked for a few times, and then he was done and he wanted the truck. And I said, no, we gotta wait the class to end. And then once the class ended, I went ahead and gave him the truck, right? Even though he cried and all that, but he wasn't throwing a tantrum or anything. He was just upset because he wanted a truck, right? Anyways, my point is, everybody has their own interest, right? They love one thing more than other. And I feel like if we use those interests to teach something, usually helps. But if you have something boring and not fun to learn in a method that is boring and not fun to learn, that will make the whole process much more difficult because you're not gonna be involved. You're not gonna be engaged, right? And that's gonna make it much more difficult to 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 get yourself learning something. So that method, whatever it is not working for you, right? It doesn't say, it's nothing about you. That's the thing. Learning process, I don't think has anything to do with who you are, right? Or who your teacher is. It's all about your interest, like being engaged to the learning process. That's what makes you to learn something.
Totally.
So I think the responsibility is both ways. I think the teacher will have part of responsibility to help you to get engaged and find the right methods for you to learn. But like I said, the teacher can be the best ever, but if you're not interested, you're still not gonna learn. So, for example, I had the students. I gave class to you, but I gave class to other students as well. I had a student that with me, she wouldn't say a word in English. She was not interested. So at the time, I had to focus only on grammar and what the school teaches because she was failing English. So I was trying to teach her English to speak, but in the end, she wasn't doing well on both, failing in English and not really developing much in school, in class. So what I told her mother was, look, let's address one problem at a time. So I'm not gonna try to teach her English because she's not interested. Right now, she doesn't like English because English for her is something that is related to failing. And failing, nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes feeling like a failure, right? Mm-hmm. So I taught her and she stopped failing in English class at school. She passed the class. She started getting really good grades in class because all I did was do exactly what the school was asking of her, which was fill blanks. You have a sentence, you fill the blanks with don't, doesn't, I am not, you're not, will not, like using auxiliaries and stuff, memorize some vocabulary, and that's it, right? So, and that's
so different from speaking English, but okay.
Exactly.
That's what she needed.
So I focused only on that. So she would come to the class and we would do exercises over and over again. And I would explain to her the whole structure. So it wouldn't be just something she repeated, but something she actually understood. And that worked. She didn't fail the class anymore. She was getting good grades. And then the class ended. And I tried to start moving away from that. It's like, okay, so now you got the school, let's get your speaking. But she was very shy and she wouldn't really develop with me. And in some point, for reasons I don't remember which one right now, her mother decided to stop with the English classes, which was nothing to do, I believe, with me, but she just decided, I don't remember the reason. But then a few months later, or the following year, she put her in a course, like one of these schools that has in Brazil that I don't remember which one was it. And there she learned English. She actually speaks English now. And she actually, I think she taught English in one of those classes for a while.
No way.
One of those schools for a while. Yeah. Yeah. And for you to see, like, she wasn't shy in there. She was interested in trying in there. Their method worked for her. And they got her engaged in the class. It got her engaged.
How old was she?
Teenager. She was, it's one of our cousins.
Yeah, it might not have been the method itself, but maybe the fact that she had a group.
Yes,
So
exactly. She made friends.
Yes.
Yeah, she made friends with kids from the English class. So all that started her getting engaged to the process of learning English. And English started not being something that was a failure for her anymore. So I think like in a way that feeling of I always fail in English and English is so hard, once that we hit that wall hard and broke it, that gave her a step to go through the learning process of English. And my method didn't work for her, and that's okay. I'm not the best teacher for everyone, especially for young ones. I've noticed that my method does not work with young people. My method will work with older people, people that are interested and wants to learn. So yeah, so with that said, that helped her. But in a way, I believe I still have an impact on that process in a way that, like I
Of
said, we broke
course.
a wall, right? We broke a wall. English is not hard. It's actually much easier than in Portuguese when you look into grammar, grammatically, especially in the basic level of English. And then now you're capable. You can do this. It has nothing to do with you. Is everything that the way you were learning was not working for you. You were not getting that information and absorbing it. And then you were going and you were forced to test it. Informations that nobody cared that if you really gathered or not, right? So with that said, I feel like all that is going to influence your learning process, right? So is the teacher, is the institution, is the methodology, everything. But the responsibility also relies on the student wanting to learn. But but that's the thing, like we were saying, if a student wants to learn, he will. But the method or the methodology might not be the right for them. So the one that who does learn, go find somewhere else to do that. But they don't learn in that school. They don't learn in that with that teacher. They learn somewhere else.
Yes,
But
and there
because
is
they chose
something, but they knew that they needed or they wanted to, right? And I feel like maybe one of the biggest challenges and responsibilities of the teacher or school is to make learning something interesting,
yes,
because nobody wants to do something that's boring and that's just like,
yes,
yeah, like I didn't like to go to school when I was a kid, just because it was not good. But like I've always liked to learn, but school for me wasn't a synonym of learning. Like, and then we at some point we say, oh, I don't like to study. Like, no, hold on. You don't like the format, you don't like school,
yeah,
but learning has nothing to deal with school itself. Like it
yeah,
happens in variables ways. And I feel like that, I don't know if you agree with me, but it might be the biggest responsibility of the teacher to create this desire and
yeah,
to somehow cultivate the will to learn, and
yeah,
not necessarily it will be with like you mentioned for Victor, with soccer or the trucks, but maybe what is behind that, which is what happened with me.
yeah,
Like in our classes, we didn't talk about soccer, about
yeah.
like that, but soccer was somehow behind the reason like why I
You are
was
learning
learning it.
English. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so still soccer was there even though it wasn't.
Yeah, and for even if you think about kids, is a very far and what is the word? Abstract. Co- um, God, I remember one word and then I forgot the other one.
Concept.
I remembered one word and then I forgot the other word. It's a very abstract idea, future. when you talk about future with kids, it's not a concept, that's the word.
Yeah.
It's an abstract concept for children. So you get all these kids in school, right? And you're trying to tell them learning English is important because you need it for your future. But kids don't work that way. Like, it's the same thing. Like, I've been struggling with Victor eating. And and I've been reading a lot about that. And one of the things Nick said, Nick sometimes will tell him, like, Victor, you gotta eat to be strong like mommy and daddy. However, that is a very abstract concept for kids. So a lot of the professionals, that nutritionists and dietitian, I never know how to say that word, dietitianers, I don't know, but they're doctors anyways, that are specialized in this area, they always say that's too far away for your kid to, oh, I'm gonna eat this veggie that tastes like terrible to me because I want to be strong like daddy when I grow up. That's not a concept that a kid can actually reach.
How do
So
you
you
do
go
that?
through when
So how do you convince them to eat?
you don't. You allow
Okay.
them to make choices, but you give them room to make choices in that group of food that you allow them to be offered to. So, for example,
Okay.
let's say the kid doesn't like broccoli, right? You're not gonna stop offering broccoli to them. You're gonna offer broccoli to them constantly, because in some point they will make that choice, because they are becoming familiarized with that broccoli. Think about it. You go into China, and then and then you go to a restaurant where it offers you all kinds of insects. Will you eat any of them? Like, will you eat thinking, oh, this cockroach looks delicious?
Well,
Will you?
probably not, just for the experience.
Exactly. But um, think about think about how that, but why you don't eat that thinking, oh, this cockroach is delicious? Because you're not familiar with cockroaches, right? Get a
Yes. I
Chinese
mean, I
kid,
am, but stepping on them.
not eating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you get a kid, and then you get a kid that is lived in China their whole life. And then the cockroach is their Sunday school snack, like they take to school every week to eat, like it's their little bag of snacks. And they think cockroaches are better than whatever other insect they're eating, like, so think about it, because they're familiar with that as a food, right? But we are not. So broccoli for a kid is the same idea. So if you keep offering that food, they're gonna become familiar with that, and then it doesn't look so scary. And they see mommy and daddy eating, and then it doesn't look so scary. And
Like,
then at some
I'm
point,
not
they're
gonna
gonna make that
die.
choice. Exactly. So Victor, for example, for the longest time, I would offer him bell peppers, and he would never eat it. Never eat bell peppers. He would keep leaving it on the plate. But every time I had bell peppers, he would have a bell pepper too. And then one day he decided he wanted, and he grabbed it and ate it. And now sometimes is the only veggie on his plate that he will eat is the bell pepper. And
That's really
he likes
interesting.
the orange bell pepper better than the red bell pepper. And then sometimes he will eat all the oranges, but he will only take a bite of the red one when it's offered to him. And some days when it's just the red one, he doesn't even touch it, because he doesn't like the red one as much as the orange ones. So, so that's the thing. You just keep offering. And what I've learned is, like, you keep offering the same food, but you also have to offer a safe food, which is the favorite food. So for example, he doesn't like broccoli, right? But I also give him cucumbers because he loves cucumbers. Or I give him a fruit because he loves fruit.
Mhm.
So even though he's not getting the broccoli that day, he's still getting minerals and vitamins that are in broccoli, but maybe in a banana, or maybe in another vegetable that I know he will eat. So you keep doing that, keep doing that. The problem with Victor is that the kids is that changes every day. So one day cheese is his favorite food, but the next week he makes a face that he does not want that, right? So
Like,
that's
what are you
really hard.
doing? Like, you just loved it.
Yeah, exactly. So that is very hard, but it's a process of a lot of patience and trust. You gotta trust that every day you're doing it right, the right steps, right? Forcing it. Well, one of the things I read is that one of the reasons kids don't eat, the ones that are picky, it's because they lose appetite. And the reason they lose appetite is because meal time becomes a source of anxiety. And when you have anxiety, and that's like 70% to 90% of the kids that doesn't eat or are pick eaters, they don't because they develop anxiety at meal time. And when you are anxious and stressed, your appetite goes down, like
And you develop that
physiologically.
because you're forced. You gotta
Yes.
eat everything. If you don't eat,
Or you're gonna sit at the table until you clean your plate.
and
Like all
that's
those
it relates
things.
totally with teaching. Like, if you don't learn, you fail the test. Because you fail the test, you don't want to study. You say, I hate
Yeah.
studying. And then you shut down to everything that's related to study. And you go
Yeah.
like, I hate English, but I mean,
You don't
yeah,
hate English. You just not learning, and that's frustrating for anyone. And you're obligated to show progress in it, for God's sake. Like I had this friend in church that her son is having a hard time in school, especially with all the COVID situation. A lot of kids are struggling in school right now because some had access to classes and some didn't, right?
mhm.
So because of that, a lot of kids are behind and they are struggling. They are truly struggling with in school right now and getting behind. And one of these kids' moms that I know, her kid was struggling. So she's been very involved with the school, trying to get him go and he get his grades up and all that. But he's being extremely frustrated. He's being extremely frustrated because even though he's smart and hardworking, his grades are still not going up. He's still behind, right? So what I told her, and I thought was very interesting, is I saw a post from a speech therapist, and she posted her daughter's bulletin, where has all the, I think is how you call it in here, but you will know better than I do probably, but where you have all the classes and the grades.
Mhm. I just say
So
great.
yeah, so she took a picture of it, and in her post she was saying, I never showed this to my kids. I never showed them the grades because these numbers means absolutely nothing. Like they can be a 5, but their learning is still a 10. They just not very good at taking tests, which that applies to me in
Yeah,
many ways. I'm not very good taking tests,
me too.
right? Yeah. So, or also can mean that they do need help. So it comes to the parents and the student to make that evaluation. So this mom, for example, she keeps telling like, he's so smart and he knows, he understands, he's learning, but the grades are not going up. And then what I told her, I said, look, maybe if you don't show the grades to him, you'll help him out, because she said that his language of love is words of affirmation, right? So when he receives words of affirmation, that motivates him a lot. And I said, but you're saying one thing and the grades is showing him something different. So the words of affirmation you're giving to him might not be reaching him in its full
Mhm.
capacity because these grades are not showing the same thing you're telling him.
Yeah.
So he's not believing in himself. So I feel like a lot of the time, that's the thing, kids needs to believe in themselves. And you put them in classrooms full of other kids, and that they become comparing themselves to others, not in an inspiring way, but in a jealousy and a self-deprecated way.
The comparison, right? Like, oh, I gotta be the best.
Yeah, and which is not a bad thing if it's done right, right? You get inspired by all these authors that you read about it. You get inspired about people who create like technology or go to space. You get inspired, right? And that's the thing. But kids in school, a lot of the times, they don't get inspired by their friends. They compare them to their friends. And you gotta teach them to be inspired. Like, oh, my friend got the best grade in class, and he got a sticker. That is so cool. I want to be like him. What is he doing different? How can I be like him, right? And not like, I'm not like him, I'm not good enough. But look at the difference, right? You're being self-deprecated. Like, I'm not capable of to be like him. No, you are, right? You just need to find your way of doing it.
Yeah, that's the
So
point. Like, how can I, or what area am I as good as my friend?
yeah, exactly.
Like, it's
What are
not,
my strengths,
yes, you don't have to be your
right?
friend.
Yeah. And what are the weaknesses that I can develop, right? So
Mhm.
it's, well, you've heard me say this, and I probably have said this a few times on your either podcast or whatever we do together on your page and all that, is you gotta know what type of student you are. You gotta know what is the type of student you are and how you learn. And that makes so the teacher's life easier. That makes the school um, that is teaching you easier for them, because you find methodologies that will work for you. You can't be stuck with only one. I remember a guy who learned English by translating music, and then he goes to an English course with an English teacher who says that that's not a good way of learning English. And then he raises up his hands and says, this is how I learned English. How is that not a good way of learning English? And then, and all that he's speaking in English. So teacher, please explain that. Please, please explain your statement, right? You make an affirmation that is really
And
not true.
teacher goes like, well, I didn't know it was. Now
Yeah.
I'm changing
So
my mind.
yeah, so I mean, I just feel like you gotta do something that will work for you, and that will, you gotta know then. And if you're a parent teaching your kids homework, you gotta learn how your kids learn, and they will learn everything in school, not because of their teacher necessarily, but because you're there supporting them in the way they learn. So if you're teaching them math and that math doesn't make sense, just trying to repeat the same method as the teachers in school, probably not gonna work. You're gonna have to think out of the box. You're gonna have to be creative, right? And that process help your kid also to learn that mindset of, oh, wait a second, I'm not learning this, but the way I've been taught is not really working for me. So let me try to make this more sense to me. And that comes with age. You're not gonna hear that from a 5-year-old or 6 or 7, probably not an 8-year-old either. Maybe a 10, maybe a 12.
Maybe.
And I'm very big maybe. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, I feel like when you go to school and think all these kids sitting in lineup classes trying to learn English and they don't open their mouth, they're just like filling up pages of blank sentences and they take a test in the end of the day, most kids are not going to learn that way, if any. If any.
I feel like the sad thing is that it doesn't apply only to English, right? Like in school, we learn the formula in math and then we memorize it. We take the test. We never see that again. Then if we need like a real life math situation to solve, go like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how I knew that a long time ago. And I think it goes a lot with what you just said. Like probably because it's forced, it blocks us from even trying. So like, I'm not good at it. But if we find a way to just develop a good environment where the student can try, not feeling bad for not getting it right first time, and then they get somehow familiar with that thing, whether it's math, English, history, or whatever, they will get more chances to practice. And in the end of the day, practice is what will make it better, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like I don't know, it's a hard test because like my brother learned English in school. He learned some English and Spanish in school, and then he did a exchange in Spain because he was selected in his class because he spoke Spanish enough to go to Spain. Then after that, he went to college, he's speaking some English, and then he got into these courses they had at school in college, UFMG, and he learned English that way. But my brother learned everything, so kind of hard to beat that, like you sit down to talk to my brother about science, he knows about science. You sit down to talk about history, he knows about history. He go to talk about philosophy, he knows about philosophy. So he's just a very smart person that absorbs information very easily. On the other hand, I was not.
Just so that people know, he's an economist, so he's not a philosopher, a historian, or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. He's an economist, exactly.
Yeah, so he knows everything.
And the thing is, my parents always pushed me to be inspired by my brother. I've never been compared to my brother before.
That's
my
great.
Mom never, neither my dad has ever compared me to my brother. And my whole life, I was the student trying hard and doing extra because of my brother, because I got inspired by him, because I had all the potential to give up on learning because I would not learn English. I've been the student that needs to work harder to get good grades. I was not the student like him that still worked hard, but didn't need it to be as hard to get good grades. I was the one. I remember like in college, I had a teacher, a class, and I had to repeat the class 3 times. So the second time that I repeated the class, I look out to my teacher after the last test, then I knew I failed. And I asked, okay, so what I was talking about is that I had a teacher and I had a class in college that I failed 3 times. And then in the second time, I was freaking tired of repeating the freaking class because I would sit down and read all the textbooks. I would write down notes. I would go to every single class. I would do all the things that I'm supposed to be doing to study for this class and actually pass, right? So in the second time I failed, I reached out to my teacher to see my last test result. And I wasn't actually interested because I failed. I wasn't expecting to find something wrong with my grade, right? So I reached out to him. I said, yeah, I want to see my grade. And so I sat down, he showed me. I didn't even look at it, the actual test. I told him like, look, I've repeated your class twice now. And I'm not a student that doesn't care. I've read everything, every single book. I have studied my ass off for this class. I have spent countless hours trying to pass your class and it's not working. So I told like, so please tell me how and what I can do different, because if I do the same thing again, I'm gonna fail again, clearly, because it didn't work the first time, it didn't work the second, the third
We know
is not
the
gonna
result.
work. Yeah. So when I said that to him, he opened a big smile and then he said, I'm surprised that that's what you asked me, because I was expecting you to ask me to give you points for you to pass the class. That's why you want to see me. And it just gives me joy to know that you want to learn what's the problem and fix it and actually learn it. And then he said, you know what's the biggest problem with this class is because if I ask you to tell me exactly what this concept is, you gonna tell me word by word what it is. But when I give you a test, I'm not asking you for you to give me memorized concept. I'm asking you to apply your knowledge to the practice. And 50% of this class doesn't know how to do that. So that's why a lot of people fail in my class, because I'm trying to get you to apply a concept and not repeat it what it is. So I know all my students know this, but they don't know how to use it. And then they fail the class. And sure enough, that's exactly why I failed. So, so I told him, say, okay, so what can I do? What can I do to actually learn it and how to apply the concept and all that? And he said, I'll be available to you. Ask me questions, answer my questions, and let's discuss the application of those concepts. So what I did was I recorded every single class that semester.
For real?
Every single class I recorded, and then I transcript all
Was
the
it in
classes.
college?
Yes, in college. So and then what I identified was I'm not a person that can maintain paying attention for very long periods of time. I have a little bit of HDD. I forgot the HID. Anyway, I forgot the acronym for it, but I have a hard time. So what I've noticed is sometimes in class he go into loops. He give a concept here, then he give an example, ask a question, and then he would go back to the concept that he said it all the way back here to finish the whole thing. And I couldn't keep up with that. I would lose myself on that whole process. So I noticed that because I was transcripting, it's like, oh, here's the answer for the question he did in class. Like, oh, I see now, because I would lose that answer. I would lose how all that thing came tied together, right? So by doing that, I would get I did a whole transcript, and then all these little questions that he would throw here and there during class, I would write the questions down, stop the recording, and try to answer myself. And then I tried to answer myself, and then I would get the answer from him. And then later I would get that question and I would send him my answer by email. So I did that whole semester. And then the cool thing is that this teacher, he's awesome. He's such a good teacher. You really full of knowledge, very good teacher, and very interested in teaching and everything. So what he would do a lot of the time is it started this way. It was only one question during class. I answered. He replied, correcting what it was incorrect, and then asking me more. And then we did that the whole semester. So the whole semester, I was exchanging emails with him and having to reply to questions. And sometimes after class, we would also discuss those questions.
So you learned.
I got the best grading in class that semester. From a class that I failed twice, I got the best grade. I was correcting his intern in class. Like, she would teach something, or she would answer some of the questions I did, next to him, and I would correct her saying, no, that's not right. And then I would correct what she just said. And he said, yep, exactly that, when we were having
That's
those
incredible.
questions. And then on top of that, all the students that were failing, I was sharing with them those email chains saying, hey, you're having a hard time, here it is. I don't know, I have a feeling that some of those, like how gossip goes around and then one story become a different story. I feel like in the end, these emails and these questions and answers became, oh, this is the test, and this is the questions and the answers for the test. Let's memorize that, because there were those kind of things going around for other classes as well. Well, they would be very disappointed because they were not answers and questions for tests. They were literally like a process of learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned and I got the best class. Like I got one of the best grades in class. And you know why? The only reason my grade wasn't good, because I had the worst group presentation in class that I didn't present, even though I was the most prepared for it. I was not the least prepared person to present in our group. Was the one that was chosen, not by my teacher, but by luck. And I was very unlucky that day, and I was very pissed at that person, but that's another conversation anyway. But yeah, my grade was just, so basically the way he divided was 30 points in group project and 70 in group in grades, right? Which means for you to pass the class on your own, you gotta do 90% of the test, or else you don't pass it, right? So it's 90% chances of your passing is on you. So I did, I basically got over 90%. So what was on my hands to get it, because the project was also involved with other people, I got it like maybe 95%. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, I did super great in his class, and I actually learned it. That's the thing. I didn't just pass, right? Like I learned the concept and I learned how to use it. So for me, that was really, really good, because it was an interesting class to learn. It was an interesting class to actually know, like it was a water divisor. We say that in Portuguese. I don't know if that's an expression in English, but it was incredible. Like this teacher, he was so hardcore that you have a group of students coming, and then you had a different kind of people leaving his class. Like
that's amazing.
Like presentations, dissertations, way of building PowerPoint presentations, all went through one level to a whole new level after his class, because how he asked, the standards he had for his students. So it was like another level. It was incredible, right?
I like it because it shows just what we started with. Whose responsibility is it? Both. If you hadn't asked him, you would probably have failed again. You would hate him, but it was not because he was a bad teacher. And his responsibility as a good professor was to help you out and develop and cultivate your interest for learning. So in the end, you like the class. So if he was a bad teacher, you would be in trouble. If you were a bad student, you would be in trouble. And I'm sure he enjoyed this process too.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He was happy that I asked him for that type of help, because that's what he's there for, right?
Yeah,
he's not
it's
there
not like,
just
can you give me points?
Yeah, exactly. There was the kid who presented on my group project. It was the 5th time she was repeating that class. And I was so pissed. Like in the presentation, she couldn't talk about simple concepts. And I'm like, come on, it's the 5th time you do this class. If you don't know this, it's like, seriously, what are you doing here?
You go like, do
And
you want to be a
very
teacher?
nice. Yeah, it wasn't very nice of me saying that, but I was really pissed at her. So I couldn't help it. Like I was really pissed because I knew
That's
she
great.
didn't prepare. The day before she had a test with another teacher that was also very hardcore. And so she studied for that instead of the presentation. So that's why I was even more pissed. But
Yeah, but
yes.
that's a good
So
case study for the answer. And
yes,
that's a very
it
good
is.
point to wrap it up. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for sharing this story and also the concept about familiarity for kids eating, which relates to learning, your
Yeah.
presentation, and the whole thing. It's always great
Yeah.
talking to you.
Sounds good. Yeah. Good talking to you too.
Thank you so much. So this episode will go, I think it'll be available next week. The one we recorded last week will be available this week. So for you guys watching, I don't know why I'm saying this. It will make no difference for you that's watching later. But okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a good one. Thank you guys. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Thanks.